All right, we're live. So we're going to do a couple things today. Number one is I'm not going to take attendance because over half of you are here. Okay? I don't want to take attendance. I don't want to have to babysit people being here. But if we have it like it's been the last 2 weeks, I won't record the lectures anymore, and I'll start taking attendance like I did last week. Okay? I want to treat you like adults. You need to give me the respect of actually showing up so I don't have to repeat things because you didn't bother to show up. I know it's early in the morning. It sucks. Okay? I don't know why they schedule classes this early. I hate it too. I hated it when I was in college. But you end up missing material and I end up repeating it. Okay? Even though I have the recordings, I end up repeating it, gosh, dozens of times a day with people who just don't show up to class because they don't want to come. Okay? So do me the courtesy of showing up and we won't have to do attendance anymore. Second thing is the exam. It's due very soon. I want to say less than a week now. So do it. Okay. Some of you haven't started it yet. You want to start it. You don't want to wait. You can go into it as many times as you need to. You can exit and come back as long as you don't submit it. Okay. If you go in and you submit it late, I won't accept it. Okay, so you've got to get it done by the due date. iLearn will let you submit it, but you'll still get a 0 for it if you submit it late. Yes?
Are we allowed to show you specific questions in the exam?
That wouldn't be fair to those who already took it. When it's all done, no, because people have already taken it. No. Yeah, it's already been up there for a while. So you can take it, and if you have like a grading question, you need to go through and look at the question, the answer, and then go and find in the book where you think it's different. If you don't agree with whether it's correct or not. You won't see if it's correct or not, specific answers, until the end of the exam for everybody.
Because there's one or two that I've read the book and just the wording is really
That may be the case, but I know that someone found the answers because we've got a number of people with perfect scores. So, yeah. So, yeah, if there's an issue, you can bring it to my attention, but chances are the exam's correct. I thought that everybody had different questions for this particular exam, but this one I didn't do that. So it's just randomized questions and answers for this one. So everybody had the same exam, just the order of things. Make sure you do that. Very important. Okay. The second thing is I have to leave this room at 9:15. I won't be able to answer questions right after class. Okay, I can't. Even if it's just a quick question, I'm not going to be able to. I have to get on a meeting, and then I've got to go to my other class. So what I'm planning to do is I have office hours today after my next class. So the next class ends at I think 10:50. So I'll have office hours say about 11 or so. I should be back in my office hours. Okay. The third thing is we're going to do a little bit of lectures today, and then I'm going to open it up for any kind of an AMA. Okay? I assume you all know what that is. So you can ask me anything. It's really about careers, but you can ask me anything. So if you've just got a burning question you want to ask me, and then we'll wrap up, and then we'll do the next lecture on Thursday with the next chapter after that. Okay? I'm also going to start using this virtual whiteboard. I finally got an education license, so you can all connect to it. I put it in the chat, so you can connect to it. You can actually see it from your seats on your phone or your computer, or whatever, okay? And then you can screenshot the content. The content will remain on there until the next class, and then I'll wipe the whiteboard clean. So you have time if you want to go get something. If we do a whiteboarding class, you don't have to try to take pictures of this whiteboard anymore. Okay? It's infinitely large though, so you've got to scroll around, zoom in, zoom out, however you need to do. You can do that with controls at the bottom right. Okay? If you have a question and we're doing it live in class, you can actually comment. It'll be anonymous. You don't need an account for this program. You can just go into it anonymously. Okay? So you can ask a question without raising your hand and having people turn around and look at you. I think it's a little bit better than asking the question out loud. Okay? So you can just click on it if you don't understand something. I don't know if we're going to get to using it today or not, but just as a heads up. Meeting minutes here, if you didn't get them in, that's okay. You have two choices. Choice number one is you can bring them on Thursday. Choice number two is you can leave them with the undergraduate office, and they'll give them to me. They'll put them in my mailbox. If you do that, though, please let me know via email or Slack that you did that. I don't go to my mailbox very often, so if you submit it, that would be good. Yeah, I think that's all the things for that I want to talk about. Okay. Let's go ahead and do these now. Oh, and I know summer is a ways off, but I might be teaching the law class in the summer, if you haven't taken it yet. It'll be a lot of fun. It'll be boring. All right, so we're going to do chapter 13. We're getting close to the end of the course. Okay? If we have time, we might do a little in-class exercise today. I don't know. But this is about resources. Oh. The wrong one's plugged in. Oh, screw it, it's not going to work. Okay. All right, so acquiring resources. One of the things we have to do is we have to get support from our customers, our suppliers, our investors. We have to have resources. And in order to do that, we have to have some sort of credibility and be legitimate. So how do we show that we're legitimate and worthy of getting resources? And resources could be money. It could be customers purchasing our product, giving us a chance when there might be something more mature out there. Those sources of legitimacy early in the morning. Intellectual property, okay, our patents, our trademarks, our copyrights, our trade secrets, all those pieces of intellectual property are things that we can use to legitimize our business, okay? Our talent. Has anybody seen a bigger company swallow a small startup just for the talent? It's called an acqui-hire. There can be value in talent. Apple did that with a couple of companies. I think there was one called Shazam or something like that that did like music intelligence of lyrics or something. Okay. Companies have done that. They've acquired a company for the sole purposes of the people. Find no value in the product that they're offering. It's just not valuable to them. But the talent that created that product can be very valuable. So that's another source is talent. The next is industry. Certain industries you can have a lot more credibility in. Okay, and so where do you stand in that particular industry? Your location, so if you are a biotech, San Diego, and you're located in San Diego, well, that can actually give you some credibility because biotechs are in San Diego. Likewise, if you're an internet company, the Bay Area can give you some credibility there. Okay? If you're in, say, the entertainment industry, well, LA. That's where the entertainment industry is based, is in the LA area. Okay, so depending on your location, you can have credibility from that as well. Social, you can have credibility based on the way that you operate, socially responsible, green, that sort of thing. Okay, and then regulatory. So if you're in compliance with laws and things like that, then you can have some credibility if you can state that you comply with CCPA, GDPR, PCI, whatever it is. Okay. Influence and persuasion, you need this to acquire resources, okay? Many a startup is able to acquire resources because of the charisma of the executives. I know of people who started a startup. Frankly, if you look at the business model, it probably was not something that most people would be able to be successful with. But they were very great at getting people to buy into their vision. And when they got them to buy into their vision, because they were very likable, very charismatic, then you're able to influence people, okay? People like to please and they like to be praised and things like that. So that's one principle of being able to get influence and persuading people. Another one is treating people how you wish to be treated yourself. okay? People who stick to their commitments. So if you commit to do something, that's going to give you more persuasion ability than if you constantly fail to live up to your commitments, okay? People listen to people they trust, okay? So if I trust you, I'm more likely to listen to what you have to say and buy into it, okay? And then people trust experts. So if you're an authority figure on something, people will trust you. Okay? I've known people who claim to be authority figures, and just the claim of it and the fact that they get interviewed a lot is enough to make people believe that they're actually an expert in the field even when they're not. Okay, it's just that perceived authority. And then unique products. So if you offer something that's just completely outside of what's available today, then you could influence people as well and persuade them to purchase your product even if they never thought they had a need before. And if you go back to like the iPod and iPhone, even the iPad, these are products that people didn't need previously, and suddenly they felt they needed them. So you can persuade people in that sense as well. From an organizational location perspective, if you're an internet company, this is not as big of a deal. You know, if your customers are all accessing your product through the internet. But let's just say you have a product that's more localized, then you would want to be where your customers are, right? You want to locate where your customers are. Employees, this is less of an issue. Your employees can be located anywhere these days. Some organizations prefer to have that face-to-face, you come to class, right? But it's not required anymore. And I don't know if any of you saw the post in Slack. I'm hoping that you have a talk on remote work in San Diego at the end. Right? It's very possible these days to entirely run your company remotely. But some businesses need to consider where their employees are partners. This can include investors. It's a lot easier to get capital in Silicon Valley because the investors are up in Silicon Valley for the most part. So if you're located in Palo Alto, a lot of the VCs are on Sand Hill Road up in Palo Alto. So it's a lot easier access to capital. So it's another consideration. Also, where are your competitors? I mean, that could be a decision of how you define where your location is going to be for your organization. Okay. The criteria, employee pool. You want to have a good employee pool. Now, if you're a remote company, this opens you up to the whole world. This is one of the benefits of allowing remote work in your organization. My best engineer came from Wichita, Kansas. I never would have found him if I had looked locally, okay? And he's followed me to multiple companies now. I have had people who have personal reasons why they can't commute, or they have a lengthy commute. I used to commute about 6 hours a day for a job when I lived on the East Coast. Okay, 3 hours there, 3 hours back. My job could have easily been done via the internet, but the culture was not supportive of that. So I spent 6 hours of my day in my car. Absolutely ridiculous. Especially this area, by the way, okay? It's improving. We're seeing more startups. We're seeing more employers moving into the area. The problem is a lot of the employers that are moving in are those warehouses out on 215, right, where they're not paying very high wages. Okay? If we want high-paying jobs, remote jobs are actually really great for all of us, okay? Because we live in an area where there aren't a lot of tech companies and a lot of really high-paying jobs. So when these jobs are flexible like that, that opens up a lot of opportunities for those of us who don't want to leave or can't leave for family reasons or whatever, okay? Some of you maybe can't wait to get out of the Inland Empire. I have no idea, okay? When I was a kid, I couldn't wait to get out of where I lived, but then in hindsight, like, gosh, it's so much more low-key than here with the rat race. So where your employees might be located, transportation's a big one. If you are not going to have remote workers, you need to have a good transportation network. People don't want to sit in their car all day to get to and from work. So are there trains, are there buses, are there subways? These are all factors you could consider. You know, if you're going to go build a company in LA, how many of you like commuting in LA and driving in LA? Anybody? I certainly don't. So if I'm going to build a company in LA, I want to build it near a metro line, you know, so I can actually get people to and from work without having to sit in traffic. If I'm gonna build it in San Francisco, I'm more likely to build a company along a BART line or a Muni line, right, than I am to go build it in the middle of Silicon Valley where there are no public transportation options with buses, because those buses are gonna be on the roads regardless. My employees won't be as happy. Another aspect is quality of life. And that's one of the things that this particular area, not being right in the city, and it's not right in LA, it's not right in San Diego, it's not right in San Francisco, is that's one thing we can offer is a quality of life. People can actually afford to buy houses, people can have property, okay? People can have good schools and things like that. So the quality of life is another factor that you consider in the location. You don't want to go probably build your business outside San Quentin prison, okay? Even though there's a city there, you probably don't want to go build your business there because the quality of life's low. Morton, Virginia is another example. There's a big prison there, okay? Probably not the best place to go find employees and build a business because the quality of life's not as high. Okay? Trenton, New Jersey, my final example. So sorry to anybody who is from New Jersey here, but Trenton, New Jersey is one of the most crime-infested areas in the country. Okay? It's so dangerous. It's a large city. It's the capital city of New Jersey. There are no hotels in Trenton. They closed the last one down and turned it into an office building because nobody wanted to stay there. It was too dangerous. So if you want to do business in New Jersey with the state, you stay 25, 30 miles away in Princeton or one of the other neighboring cities and you drive because it's not safe. You can't even stop at a stoplight there without people trying to break into your car and assault you, okay? It's happened to colleagues from Australia who were really nice and left their windows down and the laptop sitting plain view in the back seat. Right? And people come along and try to grab the laptops out of the car. You can't walk around the Capitol even after 4 o'clock without an escort from the state police. And it's that dangerous. People don't want to live there. I know because I tried to hire there. We had to have people on site. Our employees commuted 50 miles because they did not want to live in that city. We had no choice there. Cost, you want to consider the cost of your location. This is why a lot of companies are starting to reconsider the Bay Area. Not only the cost of the employees, but the cost of office rent. Has anybody ever rented a commercial space? Nobody, okay. It's extremely expensive in San Francisco. And I haven't done it for a long time, but back during the first .com boom, we built out a facility that used to be an events hall. So we used to have dances and weddings and stuff. We converted it to an office space. We spent about $10 million on that. That place now is still an office, but they're charging more than that in rent every year for this facility for all the different companies that are located there. It's pretty substantial amounts. Okay? Affordable housing is pretty important. Some industries, the proximity to your customers, and then availability of office space. That's another issue with San Francisco markets is there's just not a lot of free office space. Right? Even though they're constantly building new high rises, there's just a shortage because everybody wants to be located up there for a number of reasons. It's starting to change. I just saw an article 2 days ago about Square, I think, and Twitter. And they're both adopting remote policies because they realize they can no longer compete in San Francisco if they just hire in San Francisco. Okay. Vertical integration. Okay. So this is where your organization controls all of the value chain activities. Now, as a startup, you don't want to do this for a variety of reasons, but this is where you cover, you control development, design, manufacturing, logistics, marketing, sales and distribution and service. You can't afford to do this as a startup. You're going to have to outsource some of these components. Okay? Now, if you're a software company, there aren't things like manufacturing and logistics so much. Okay? But if you're anything else, you have to worry about those. Some companies say, you know what, we're going to come up with the design of our product, and then we're going to outsource the development. Maybe we outsource the manufacturing. Apple is a great example. Apple doesn't necessarily run their own factories for most things. They have some factories, but most things they do not. Okay. They used to. We used to have a huge facility in Oak Grove, California, by Sacramento, where they built like maps and stuff. Well, they shut it down and they moved that over to China and started manufacturing through partners. They outsourced. So they decided that they didn't need that. But on the other hand, they started making their own chips for their computers and phones. So initially, they used an outsourced supplier, Intel, and they started building their own chips because they decided that they can build what they want better and for So you as an organization are going to have to determine how vertically integrated are you going to be. So are you going to outsource some things? So here's some questions you can ask to determine that, okay? The first one is this a primary source of value for my organization, this activity? Okay? The second one is the activity tied to a resource that we control exclusively within our company? Okay? The third is, are competitors at a cost disadvantage and unable to imitate that resource that we offer? And the fourth is this activity key to our mission? If it's not a key area, or sometimes called a key core competency, then we probably are going to outsource that to another organization, okay? And let them focus on it, because maybe they're better at that. Maybe they can drive more value out of it than we can if we do it ourselves, okay? The next thing is virtual organizations. So we can manage our partners and suppliers using technology, and we can pull in resources from other organizations. So some of you might use SaaS software, okay? That's an example. We aren't running that system ourselves. We're purchasing or leasing a system to use. Okay? Another one is outsourcing of our development or our IT. We're going to make use of a virtual organization to go do our coding for us. Or for manufacturing, we're going to make use of a virtual manufacturing organization. There are companies that their sole business is manufacturing things for other people. So they'll get a contract to go manufacture. I've seen some companies in the US who do this, but this is pretty prevalent in Asia countries in particular. Where we outsource production of a certain item, we give them the specifications of what they need to produce, we sign a contract, and they go and produce it for us. Okay? And then we make money in every unit that's produced. So think the computers and our tablets and our phones and our other electronics, okay? And then how are new technologies successful? Their functional performance, maybe their initial total cost is lower, so that makes it successful. Easy to use, very important. Okay, a lot of times easy to use is the differentiator between a successful product and a product that nobody wants to buy. Low operating costs. So in addition to the initial cost of purchasing the item, are the operating costs of that item low? So I'll give you an example. Let's say I go out and buy a Tesla. The initial cost is very high, okay, for a Tesla. But the operating cost over time are much lower. There's no gas to purchase. Okay? You can get, depending on the Tesla you buy, I understand you get free charging and stuff like that, okay? So the cost of initially purchasing it is significantly higher. So that's going to actually drive adoption down, but that lower operating cost might drive adoption up. So you've got those two opposing forces there. Reliability. People will buy a reliable product, even if it costs more money. Okay. Compatible. So something that's compatible with other things. So if I purchase a product that's compatible with my iPhone, if I know that it's compatible and I don't have issues, people are more likely to buy it, okay, even if maybe it's more expensive. And then serviceable, and this kind of throws the whole Apple model out the window, but if the product's serviceable, then it's probably more likely to be successful than if it's not serviceable. So I can't go and, or I suppose I could, okay, because I've had other Apple laptops they say you can't open. I could open this up and start tinkering with it to replace parts. I probably shouldn't, because I probably can't get parts for this laptop. This is not designed to be serviceable by me. But on the other hand, you've got a micro one. Someone who's got a big laptop in the room here? Does nobody have a big giant one? Nobody does, okay. Well, my big giant one I use for VR is about this thick, right? This big. I can easily open it up. There's screws I can get to. I can open it up and I can replace parts, and it's serviceable. Okay? So that might be a factor that drives the success of that product, is it's a serviceable product. Okay. All right. So what I'd like to do, we actually have a lot of time. Okay. We have about 45 minutes till I have to leave. So the first thing I want to do is have you think about your organizations in your little groups. Okay, we'll just do this for a few minutes. Think about the types of things. Actually, you know what? We'll do this at the end of class. Let's do that, and we'll do the AMA first. But think about what you need to be doing in your group. At the end of class, what I'd like you to do is get in your group and think about what aspects of your organization are you going to retain in-house and what aspects are you going to outsource. Write it down on a piece of paper and then you're gonna give it to me at the end of class with your names on it, and I'll do extra credit for those who showed up today, okay? Hopefully that will encourage people to actually show up. But in the meantime, I want to open it up for any questions that you might have for me. Okay, anything. Because I get these questions all the time. Don't be shy, because I would rather answer them, and maybe it would help if I sat down so I'm not so intimidated. Pretty neat. All right, so I'll sit down so I'm not so intimidating in front of the room. Okay. What kind of questions do you have? Because I get these questions all the time, and it's a lot easier for me to answer them here in the classroom. Careers. You guys have to have questions. Interviews, careers. Yes?
Would you recommend grad school?
It depends. I think it depends on what you want to do. These days, I recommend it if it can give you an advantage in the field. Because you got to think about bachelor's degrees now. They're more like an associate's degree now. Everybody is starting to have bachelor's degrees, so now a master's degree can differentiate you from someone else. Some jobs you can't even get without some sort of graduate degree. It doesn't always matter what your graduate degree is in. So as an example, I took a job, and if I wanted to move beyond a certain level, I had to have a master's or a doctorate. It didn't really matter what it was in, right? But in order to do the leveling, HR had put in the requirement that in order to go above a director, you had to have an advanced degree. So it really depends. Some people are content to just stay at a mid-career level their whole lives and just kind of coast along, and that's job satisfaction for them. Some people are very ambitious and want to keep moving up to the next thing. So it depends. Other questions? There have to be more questions than that. Come on. I get them all the time. People want to come. Yes?
For the resume, what would you recommend, like, formatting?
Yeah, so I don't think that templates, I'm gonna use the whiteboard, by the way, so I'll pop it up because I think this will be helpful to show you visually. All right, so this is the whiteboard thing. And I will show you what I recommend. Is it less intimidating if I'm sitting down? Yeah, okay. Would it be better if I sat in the chair? All right, I don't want to be intimidating. I think it's just natural. I was scared of my professors too, but I assure you I don't bite. Okay, so one of the recommendations I have for a resume, and you can come back and look at this later if you want, is you're going to have your personal information up here, okay? Like your contact info and stuff, right? What I recommend is you start off and do a story, okay? A concise story. Think of it like an elevator pitch, okay? And be creative. As a manager, what I don't like to see is objective statements. They are antiquated. If you write an objective statement on your resume, I know that you took lessons from someone who's probably 70, 80 years old on how to write a resume. Objectives are just not relevant. We know you want the job, okay? We honestly, and I'm not trying to be like harsh, but we really don't care. What we want to know is how you can impact our business. Okay, so we care more about the story and articulating what you can offer. We don't also, another thing we don't want to see is just rehashing the job description for your job, okay? So, to give you an example, monitored systems for performance, hired employees, helped customers. These are not very helpful. These are just things you did in your job. What I want to know is what impact you had to the business. So think of ways to transform that into an impact statement. So let's say you work at McDonald's, okay? And I don't knock that because I worked at Burger King myself, okay? It was the shittiest job. Okay, I take that back. It's not the shittiest job I've ever had. It's one of the shittiest, okay? But one of the things about it was I learned some valuable skills, okay? I learned to deal with people, if you've ever watched Office Space, okay? But in that job, you do things that are measurable business impact. So let's say you work the drive-thru and you have an objective of you have to have all cars out within 2 minutes and you have to have 95% satisfaction. These are KPIs or key performance indicators that you can use to turn that McDonald's experience into something that someone in business who's looking at resume for your first professional job maybe is going to actually care about. That's great that you know how to make the perfect French fry. That's great that you know how to make the perfect sandwich, okay? But those skills are not transferable to your real careers that you're going to go into in the future, right? So you've got to find a way to transform those skills into something that's useful. And here's an example with the drive-thru. Achieved a metric of 99% customer satisfaction on a daily basis. That's a metric that transfers to business, okay? In terms of getting the orders correct and accuracy, had a less than 2% defect rate in customer orders. It's something that's a metric that someone's going to look at as a manager and say, wow, this is something that I actually care about. I don't care if you know how to make the best Whopper in the world, okay? I still remember how to make one, by the way. But it's irrelevant, okay? And when you don't have a lot of experience, it's tough. And so I always get asked, well, what can I do about my resume? That's one of the things you can do is think of, and I actually teach, I've taught it once, I don't teach it very often, but a business writing class. And one of the things I made them do was a resume, okay? And one of the things I told them they had to do was figure out a way to take that McDonald's experience or that Burger King experience and transform it into actual measurable results and accomplishments, okay? Now the story. So the story part of that resume at the top is just a concise story about your background and what you can do. Use what you do in classes to your advantage, right? We're doing a project in this class. You're creating a fictional company. All of the shitty part of your narrative, if nobody in this class puts it in their resume, you've lost an opportunity, okay? It's a great opportunity because until you get internships and you get jobs, you have to rely upon your experience in college, okay? So if you can put anything you did in college and find a way to write a story. Now, if you need help writing this story, what I would suggest is write something, throw it in Grammarly, get it checked and cleaned up, and then have someone else take a look at it, okay? Now, I wish I had the time to review individual resumes for people. I really wish I did. I just don't. But you can ask like the Writing Center and stuff to take a look at your resume and the story aspect of it. If you want to invest money, there are companies out there that do resumes. Some are good, some are bad. If that's something of interest, I can give you a website to the lady who did mine. She does student resumes. Her cost is based on the level of position. So if you're a student, the cost is a fraction of what I had to pay for it, right? If you're later in your career, the price goes up because it's based on your salary, like with the salary levels, right? I highly recommend that you put something together on your own, and then if you're really wanting a really great job, look at a service like that that's reputable. There are a lot of people who write resumes and they write really lousy ones, okay? So base it on someone who can give you a recommendation of a company that actually has gotten results, okay? I will tell you this, if you want to follow someone who does talk about this stuff and gives tips for free, Storyline Resumes is who did mine. Okay? Story with an EY, not a Y. That's her last name. You can go there, and she even has some examples on her website. You can just download it and use it. Okay? Just be sure that you change the information inside it because, you know, it's someone's sample resume. But you're not going to probably get the same effect as if you had a professional writer. But you may not be able to afford it, and that's okay. Okay? If you can't afford it, then go ahead and write it yourself, but make sure someone else looks at it. Okay? And I would recommend it be someone who's been in a professional career if you can find someone like a mentor or someone. Okay? So the story, a quote would be good if you've got like a quote from a former coworker, or like a boss or a coworker. Okay? Oh, Sally and I, we worked together on amplifying the signal through the noise, and we found a lot of needles in the haystack when we were working on this project at XYZ, that sort of thing. Okay? It's just an eye catcher. That's all the purpose of that is. Honestly, people are never going to put a bad quote on there. They're always going to put a good quote. So I don't weigh it in any way, shape, or form in terms of do I interview the person or not. It's just to catch my attention, because if the resume is otherwise boring, at least it's something that captures my attention. Okay? I have seen some of the worst resumes possible out there, probably, where someone found our job on Craigslist, which I would never post a job on Craigslist after that. But bad groceries. I mean, it literally had their first name, not their last name. Had their number, and the intro was like this part. Their name, their phone number was about this tall, and then I hate my job, please hire me, cause I good worker, and then, like, I bag groceries at Vaughn's, I hate it, customers piss me off, I mean, you're never gonna get a job with a resume like that, okay? So take the time to write a good one. The other thing is the cover letter is another aspect you really need to focus on. Sometimes the cover letter makes a difference, by the way. I don't think that I've gotten, recently any type of interviews from the resume, it's just the resume. It's the cover letter leads them to the resume. Cover letters are not supposed to be boring, they should be very concise. So I try to do like a funny story, depending on the company. Sort of a Grumman or a big, culturally a really formal culture, then you don't want to do that. You want to do a formal letter. But if it's a startup or something like that, which is really the purpose of this class, if it's a startup or a little bit more casual company, then you can write a letter with a funny story in it, funny anecdote, a hobby of which you know, I love to snowboard, and I saw you at your trip on your website, you all went out snowboarding for your annual event, that's really cool. And by the way, I'm also a really great team player, and you start talking about these other things, you just don't want to rehash your resume in the cover letter. Okay? The quote is the next thing here, and then I would do things like since your students are going to have your education first, and then you do professional. You're going to flip that when you have a few years of experience. Okay? You need to do chronological, by the way. Functional resumes, people look at it and think you're hiding something these days. Okay? So you want to make sure it's by chronological. Get volunteer experience if you don't have a job. Okay? Do student activities, join student clubs, be officers. These are all things you can put in your experience. You certainly want to say it's an unpaid experience, okay, just to make sure that it's clear and people don't think you have to. They'll do background checks on you. You don't want to lie. I just went through that process. These background check companies check everything, and if one little thing isn't exactly the same, they won't give you the job. So you want to make sure things are accurate on your resume and accurate when you apply. I have had people who lied and said they were CEO or something. I didn't think we checked it. Okay? We call the company, or well, these days we use an outsourced company for legal reasons, but a lot of things. I will post my resume if anybody wants to see it. Okay? I'll post it in Slack so you can see an example of it. Okay? Now, keep in mind, mine is late career, so I don't have my old ones anymore. I didn't keep them from when I was younger, but you just will flip the experience and the education section throughout. And then, Chelsea, I saw you had a question a little while ago. I answered, okay. Any other questions? Yes?
So after last class, I decided to do what you suggested, sort of started in San Diego, since that's where I'm gonna be in the summer, so that's what I was gonna do. But I'm not sure what positions I should be looking for. What are positions you suggest we apply to that are entry level?
So are you looking for an internship or a
summer job?
So for a summer job, I would suggest trying to get them to do an internship for you, because what they don't want to do is hire someone who's going to leave in the fall, right? Because hiring a person is very expensive. There's the salary cost, but there's usually a 20% uplift for just benefits and taxes and stuff like that. And then there's also the cost of training someone, which is very costly. So companies are not going to want to hire you for a regular job when you're still in school, unless you're local. So since you're going to be down there, I would target internships. And so some companies may not have a formal internship program. So that's when you just reach out to them and say, hey, I'm interested in doing an internship, paid or unpaid, however you want to do it. And I'm willing to do whatever you want, grunt work, in order to get my foot in the door. And honestly, these companies, you will do grunt work, but it's not like getting coffee for people. Startups, everybody contributes something meaningful to the organization, no matter what your role is. Even when you're the receptionist, you're doing something meaningful. Companies I worked at, the receptionist was the receptionist to greet people when they came in, but they were also marketing and doing business development and helping the CEO with events, all these other things. So any type of role that you can get, I would say try to get in for an internship type role. If you're trying to get something here because you go to school here, as a regular job during the year, there are some startups, and when Scott comes in next week, by the way, Scott Borofsky is the director of the Entrepreneurship Center here on campus. He's going to be coming in. I don't know if he's going to bring anyone else with him. He knows a whole bunch of companies that are looking for people, and they don't have a large budget, so they may be looking for people who are looking for college credit as an externship, and are willing to do that or pay a very low wage, like minimum wage. And then you can do whatever in those companies. There's a new one, Bachelor in Biotech, formed from UCR right here. Right? students and faculty, and they're looking to hire. I just saw some job postings recently for that, so who knows? There might be some opportunities locally where that would be flexible around your school schedule as well here. But yeah, I would go for internships, and they're not always posted. Like my former boss works for a company; they don't have internships officially, but he's planning to launch them in the summer through his own mechanisms. Other questions? Yes.
Do you know of any technical skills or certifications that help you stand out in the tech field today?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Certifications, I think certifications are great when you're young and fresh out of college. They will set you apart from someone else who has the same college degree, maybe has a better GPA. If I'm an employer and I'm looking at two candidates, by the way, I don't look at GPA, I don't really care. I think it's meaningless. Who cares what your GPA is? Right? Some companies care about that. I might look at your education, but I don't look at it as a primary factor. I look at it as a factor in addition to whatever other experience you have. At the most, I look at it from the perspective of you did something very tough and you finished it. So that's what I look at education. But the certifications that you can get can be very valuable. So some of you are not MIS majors. Some of you are in marketing or management or whatever, right? Marketing certifications that are very valuable, I think, are the Hootsuite certifications. And if you took my 101, you had an opportunity to take those certifications, which are not cheap. One is $100, the other is $200 to take the test, okay? On top of getting access to the materials. So if you can get in a course where the professor can get you access, and even if it's not a relevant course, ask the professor if they can get you an account, your class like access if you're interested in it. Your professor can get you access to Hootsuite and get you free certifications, even if it's not relevant to the class. So that's one, but that's not a technical one. You asked about technical. So from a technical perspective, it really depends on where you want to go. If you want to go into cybersecurity certifications are extremely valuable. But some of them you have to have experience in order to get the certification. It's kind of like a project manager certification. You have to have a lot of experience to get a project management certification. So what do? I recommend the easy ones that are really low cost to get. If you're going into the IT or MIS field, go after like the Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud Platform, and Microsoft Azure certifications. Sometimes you'll find those tests are free. They'll offer specials through the year. You have to subscribe to their mailing list, obviously, to hear about them. But Google had one at the end of last year where free certification. Okay? Very valuable. Microsoft certifications, on the other hand, generally, Azure is an exception. Microsoft certifications these days are a dime a dozen. They're not really valuable. CompTIA certifications, not very valuable. CompTIA will tell you otherwise, but I will tell you that looking at it as a hiring manager, it's actually a negative thing. So getting a CompTIA A+, Network Plus, whatever, I hate to say, I don't want to sound like biased or anything, but kind of am. Everyone that I've hired for certifications was grossly incompetent and just knew how to study from a book and had no practical ability to actually diagnose problems. They just knew the answers that were in the book because they studied reason. So it's meaningless to me. I've kind of taken the approach that those are meaningless. If you want to go into a specialized area though, then there are specialized certifications like Salesforce and stuff that you can get. And actually Salesforce has a lot of classes for free. And I have a student who just graduated last semester, and they did Salesforce certifications outside of class, and they just kept doing them over the holidays, and they got a bunch of them. They started as a very entry-level role at a tech company down in San Diego, and within a couple of months got promoted up into a full-time permanent position. They were happy for it, and those certifications certainly helped them out as well. Other questions? Any questions? Yes.
You told about find the internship in the startups,
Mhm.
and like the startups that don't really post the job opportunity, and how do we find
You ask, you say, hey, here's what I've got to offer you. This is what I want to offer you. Can you offer me an internship? I'm willing to work for free if you're willing to do that, right? Or I'm willing to work for minimum wage and do whatever. I just want to get experience. A smaller company doesn't necessarily post those things because they don't have the framework and infrastructure for that. But if you ask them, a lot of companies will create a role. It might be an entry level role, but if you're passionate and you can't just give up, right? You can't just, oh, they told me no, I'm gonna go sulk about it. You know, If they tell you no, reply to their email and say, well, thank you for your time. Please keep me in mind if anything comes up. If you see that they post a press release about how they want a new contract or something, mention that. Say, hey, I follow you. I'm very excited. I know you don't have anything, but you just signed this new contract with this customer. Maybe I can help you with that, you know. Maybe I can give you a couple hours a week to help with that contract, and you know that will help me get the experience. And I'm very passionate. I will work very hard for you. But convey that interest then. If you're very interested, people are more likely to keep you in mind, even if they don't have something today. Other questions? Yes?
What do you look for in a startup to make sure that there's like potential and it's not just like a product that, like you mentioned that the mirror on the hand thing?
Oh yeah.
How do you, like, how else do you differentiate a startup that you think will grow versus not grow?
So the first thing I look at is, I go to Crunchbase, and I look in Crunchbase to see if they've ever received any outside funding. If they've received outside funding, that tells me that someone validated that they were legitimate. Now, not all startups, especially early stage, are in Crunchbase, but startup founders like the publicity that you can get from being in a database like Crunchbase. So if they get funding from the outside world, then generally they are in Crunchbase. So that's one tool that I use. Another tool is I will go on the SEC's website to see if they've raised any funds. And they're not, by the way, small startups are not usually in the SEC database. Some of them do have to file though based on the way that they're structured. So you can see, okay, they pitched that they're gonna sell $6 million in stock, but they've only sold $100,000 in stock. That's a red flag for me. Why is it they can't get investors on board? Are they gonna pay us on time? That's another red flag. The next thing is I go on LinkedIn, I look up employees who work there and I ask them about it. I'll reach out to them and say, hey, I see you work at this company. What do you think about it? What's going on? When it's a one-on-one connection between you and someone else, they're more likely to tell you the truth than if you ask, you know, go on Glassdoor. Because on Glassdoor, I've noticed a lot of companies are doing fake reviews now. So there are people I've worked with who do ready go Glassdoor, and they have people go out and write fake reviews to counteract the bad reviews from the real employees. So you can't really always rely on sites like Glassdoor. You've got to kind of do your own research. I ask questions during the interview. I ask a lot of questions. Now they won't usually tell me like details of their funding until the very end when they're ready to make an offer. But I will not accept a job anymore because I've been burned too many times unless I actually can see details about their funding. Because I had a C-level executive tell me the company had $36 million in funding, and because they're private, I really couldn't verify it. And then my first week after getting on the payroll, our payroll was delayed. And it was delayed almost every payroll after that because they didn't have the money to pay us. So we're doing the work for free. And that's a bad situation to be in unless you're trying to get an internship. So that's what I do. And then I also, if they say they have certain customers, I see if I can find any more details about the customers. I hate to say this, but startups can be, you know, starving for media attention. So they will go out and get whatever press they can get. So you can a lot of times find things of, you know, Forbes, you know, CEOs on the Forbes 100 list, you know, for 40 under 40 or whatever it is. You can usually find information if you sleep enough. Other questions? No other questions? Anybody I haven't heard from before? I really don't bite. I really don't. I want to help you, but I just don't have the bandwidth to do these individually. Okay? Yes?
Would you be able to get us the free Hootsuite certification?
I have them for my 101 class, and I think that because you have a UCR email, I can probably just give you the same information because not everybody in my 101 class will do it. So how many of you are interested in the Hootsuite? Okay, there's not that many of you. So I will post the same material from my other class. Just beware you won't get credit for this class. But you can go sign up. You need to use your school email if you have it, but I found out that even if you don't have it, as long as you use the link that I provide, you can use a personal email if you're extension students, because extension doesn't have UCR email addresses, okay? So you don't need to worry about that. I would prefer if you do have a UCR email that you use it though, because I think they would like to see a lot of UCR emails in there. It means that they're more likely to let me do it in the future. I will post that probably, if you wouldn't mind, actually do me a favor and send me a Slack message to remind me, and I will try to do that this afternoon, okay? Yes?
And if we did take the one-on-one class, can we still like use the thing, or is it like a year max?
It would have expired by now because we're past that, but you can just use the one that I'll send out for this year's. Yeah. Yes?
Do you have any experience going to a bank for startup capital?
Banks are not going to lend to startups usually because the risk is too high. So the only way you would be able to get a bank loan would be through the SBA probably, and that's because it's backed by the federal government. But even then, you usually have to show measurable revenue and traction, and so it's very hard to get any type of debt financing outside of like angel funding and seed funding. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, I would look into like angel or seed funding, but you have to, if it's a consumer type product, you have to show huge traction. So that you did a pilot and you got 100,000 people sign up in a week or something like that. If it's an enterprise product, you have to show that you have some real enterprise companies actually interested, like say you're doing something for enterprise data centers. You would have to have a company like Dell interested in what you're offering in order to probably get funding. I would suggest when Scott's here next week, you ask him that question because he's actually going through that right now. It's really tough in this area to get any type of funding. So there are some programs like the this UCR campus has the Highlander Fund, which is investing in startups. The challenge is it has yet to invest in a Riverside startup because there aren't any that met the criteria for investment. There are some initiatives to try to build that program where there's funding locally here. So that's his job, is he's going out trying to get investors on board to fund startups that form here at UCR. So that would be a great question for Scott. Other questions? Yes?
I'm getting brought in as a channel sales manager for my company, and I feel like they're lowballing for my salary. So what tactics do you use to get the value that you want?
Do you already have the job there?
Yeah, I'm currently part-time, and then
Okay.
they're gonna sign me for revenue.
Okay, so you're trying to get full-time. Unfortunately for your first job, you don't have a lot of bargaining power for salary. What you can try to do is maybe bargain for, do they have like accrued days off where you get a certain number of days off a year?
Yeah.
You could try to get an extra day. You aren't gonna get more than a couple of days at most from them because you're still new in your first job. When it's your first job, it's really tough to negotiate unless you've got multiple offers on the table from multiple companies. You said it was a sales role?
Channel sales manager.
Okay. So if there's a variable compensation aspect, you might be able to negotiate that aspect. But it's really tough on your first role. Now your second role and beyond, you probably can do more negotiation. But you might, if you don't have other options on the table, you might not be able to negotiate. Yeah. It sucks. That's where I made that joke last time about the guy from Harvard. And you guys remember that? Did I tell it to this class? Guy walks into the interview, he's a Harvard grad, and the guy asks him for his salary requirements, and he said, well, I was thinking something in the neighborhood of $200,000 a year. And the guy goes, oh, well, what do you think of this? A company car, you can use the company cabin, we'll give you a secretary, you get 10 weeks paid vacation. The kid goes, gosh, you've got to be kidding me. And the guy goes, yeah, but you started it. Okay. The reality is you probably won't be able to negotiate that first job. But after that first job, get that experience, and your second one, you're going to be able to negotiate. And how do you negotiate? You don't throw out the first number. Is the first step. They are going to pressure you to give you a number, or give them a number. Okay. Even in your first job, they're going to ask you for a number. Defer. Say, you know what? I'm not really sure. What are you willing to pay for this role? And usually these days they will give you a range, okay? If they're a good company. Some companies absolutely refuse on principle because they want you to throw out the first number. Try never to throw out the first number, okay? Let them throw it out. And they'll probably give you a range. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to get the top of the range. They're going to base it on your experience and how well you do in the interview and how bad they want you, okay? Let me do this real quick. I will stop the recording, and then I will tell you something that's probably very